Your Honor, I have proof that the entire marriage was a fabrication. The words slice through the silence. Meri Brown stands at the witness stand, her voice trembling, but her eyes never waver. Across the courtroom, Kody Brown's signature smirk fades. For the first time in years, he's speechless. Robyn, sitting beside him, clutches a thick binder to her chest, the same binder Meri's lawyer hasn't even touched yet. Every camera in the room zooms in. Every reporter leans forward. The silence feels heavy, electric. This isn't a reality show. This isn't Sister Wives, this is war. The letter that started it all. Cut to slow-motion shots of an envelope being slid under a door. It didn't begin with a fight. Not with yelling, not even a phone call. It began with a letter. A simple cream-colored envelope, thin as paper, heavy as betrayal, delivered by hand to Kody and Robyn's doorstep in Flagstaff. Inside, just a few lines that would change everything. Dear Mr. Brown, you are hereby notified that a civil complaint has been filed against you and your wife, Robyn Brown, for financial fraud, emotional distress, and misrepresentation within a domestic partnership. When Kody read it, he laughed. He waved it in Robyn's face, smirking. She's bluffing, he said. Meri's just trying to stir the pot again. But Robyn didn't laugh. Her hands trembled. Her face went pale. Because she knew something Kody didn't. Meri wasn't bluffing this time. Years of silence, years of secrets. Soft piano plays under slow clips of old Sister Wives moments, smiling, hand-holding, the perfect family illusion. For over 20 years, the Brown family preached unity, faith, and love. Millions tuned in to see them smile, laugh, and call themselves unbreakable. But behind those camera-ready grins, Meri says the truth was darker than anyone could imagine. Manipulation, emotional control, and worst of all, financial betrayal. According to the lawsuit, throughout their spiritual marriage, Kody and Robyn diverted joint family funds, used Meri's earnings without consent, and coerced her into signing over assets in the name of family trust. Meri wasn't just betrayed, she was erased. For years, she stayed silent, told to keep the peace, to protect the family name. But silence has a breaking point, and for Meri, that moment came wrapped in a legal envelope. The fraud claims. When Meri's legal team filed the lawsuit, it wasn't just a few accusations. It was a bombshell document packed with evidence. She had bank statements, notarized letters, private messages, and wire transfers labeled Family Emergency Fund. Except there had never been an emergency. Each transfer told the same story. Money moved from Meri's accounts, straight into Robyn's, and when Meri questioned it, Kody would text her the same chilling line. Don't make this a thing. You owe it to the family to stay quiet. That text would later become one of the most powerful pieces of evidence in her case. And the headlines explode. Cut to flashing tabloid covers, dramatic music rises. By morning, the media had their hands on it. Meri Brown sues Kody and Robyn for fraud. DNA evidence could shake the Brown legacy. The Sister Wives courtroom showdown begins. The Brown family's carefully built image shattered overnight. Kody refused interviews. Robyn stayed hidden. Even TLC declined to comment. But Meri, calm, collected, and done being ignored, stepped in front of her Utah home with a single microphone. Cut to dramatic camera zoom in as her voice plays. I gave them my loyalty, she said. Now I'm giving them the truth. The internet erupted. Fans picked sides. And in the quiet corridors of Arizona State Court, a war was being prepared. Day 1, inside the courtroom, sound of a gavel striking. Whispering in the gallery? The courtroom wasn't as grand as the headlines made it seem. No cameras, no lights. Just silence, and tension thick enough to cut. At the plaintiff's table sat Meri and her lawyer, Dana Kilpatrick, a calm but razor-sharp attorney known for her precision. Across the aisle, Kody sat stiff, jaw clenched. Robyn beside him, silent and pale. When the clerk announced the case, Meri L. Brown versus Kody W. Brown and Robyn A. Brown, even the air felt heavier. Dana rose first. Her tone was composed, but the words were a blade. Your Honor, what my client endured was not just emotional manipulation, but calculated, provable fraud, committed under the guise of spiritual partnership. The judge leaned forward. You're suggesting this wasn't just a misunderstanding? No, Your Honor, Dana replied firmly. We will show patterns of deceit, coercion, and financial exploitation. And when the time comes, we will introduce DNA evidence proving long-term concealment. The room erupted in murmurs. Kody's lawyer jumped to his feet. Objection! This is theatrics! There is no DNA evidence. The judge raised a hand. Then we'll resolve that in discovery. Proceed. And just like that, the door to every hidden secret was opened. Meri's receipts over the next hour. Meri's team presented a series of documents that made even the judge's eyebrows rise. A 2016 notarized affidavit transferring a real estate investment from Meri to Robyn for tax purposes. Emails where Robyn advised Meri not to raise questions publicly. Text messages from Kody reminding her that family unity comes before personal gain. Meri's voice didn't crack once as she explained each piece. Remaining quiet, she said softly, cost me everything. Then she reached into her purse. The entire courtroom went still. She pulled out a sealed envelope, hands trembling, but not with fear. With power. Your Honor, her lawyer announced, we're not submitting this yet. But let the record show. This contains DNA confirmation relevant to the defendant's intent. If the defense continues to claim my client's case is baseless, we will unseal it. Gasps filled the room. Kody's face went white. Robyn clutched her binder even tighter. Meri didn't look at either of them. Her eyes stayed fixed on the judge. I didn't come here to hurt anyone, she said quietly. I came here because no one ever listened to me. Now they will. Cinematic fade out. The heartbeat returns. The music swells. The headlines that night told the world everything they needed to know. DNA threat stuns courtroom in Meri versus Kody case. Meri Brown strikes back. But behind the scenes, the war had only just begun. The war had only just begun. The defense wanted a reversal. They didn't want Meri painted as the broken-hearted victim anymore. They wanted the world to believe she had been a willing partner, an insider, a woman who had played every hand right alongside Kody. The defense strikes back. Kody's attorneys came armed with files, footage, and fragments of the past. They produced old emails, family agreements, even unaired episode clips from the Las Vegas years. Anything that might prove Meri had consented. In one video, Kody sat at the family table, all 4 wives surrounding him. His voice calm, his tone persuasive. If we all pool our money together, we can buy the property outright. It's for the family. In the background, Meri nodded silently. The defense lawyer hit pause on the screen. There, he said proudly. Consent. She agreed. She participated. She was not deceived. She was part of it. But when Meri's attorney, Dana Kilpatrick, rose, her voice was ice. She nodded, Dana said. That's not a contract. That's not a signature. That's a woman on camera surrounded by power, pressure, and control. That's not consent. That's survival. The room froze. For a moment, even the judge leaned back, watching Dana with quiet respect. The air shifted. Kody's legal strategy, the idea that Meri had been complicit, began to crumble. The internet erupts outside the courthouse, public opinion split in half. On one side, loyalists, nostalgic for the image of the smiling Brown family on TLC. On the other, a tidal wave of supporters lifting Meri up as a survivor, finally finding her voice. Team Meri trended for 2 straight days. Reddit threads dissected every frame of the old episodes, cross-referencing scenes, dates, and receipts from the legal filings now made public. But hashtags didn't win trials. Evidence did. And Kody's next move, his biggest gamble yet, would change everything. The DNA envelope on day 3, Kody's attorney filed a motion to unseal Meri's DNA envelope. Kody leaned toward his team, whispering, "We have nothing to hide. Let's expose her stunt for what it is." Robyn looked pale. Her hands trembled, gripping her arm as if she could hold herself together by force alone. She hadn't spoken once that entire morning. The judge looked up from the bench. "Counselor, your response?" Dana stood slowly, calm, collected, deadly. "Your Honor, the defense wants the DNA evidence opened. We have no objection. But they should understand what they're requesting. Once it's unsealed, it cannot be withdrawn." Kody's lawyer smiled. "We're ready." A single line of dialogue that sealed their fate. The judge nodded. "Then we'll open it, in chambers. No cameras. Both counsels present." The courtroom murmured like a storm about to break. The truth unsealed. Meri sat alone outside the judge's chambers, hands clasped in her lap. Inside, behind closed doors, the truth was laid bare. No drama, no music. Just black ink on white paper. The cold clarity of science. The results weren't shocking. They were catastrophic. The DNA report confirmed that one of Robyn's children, long presented publicly as Kody's biological child, was not his. A truth hidden in plain sight for years, shown on camera, celebrated in magazines, embraced as part of the family legacy, now exposed as a lie. The dates matched perfectly with Meri's lawsuit timeline, that same period when funds were being withdrawn from Meri and Janelle's shared accounts to cover medical expenses for Kody's child. Dana's voice, steady as a knife, told the court later, there were no medical expenses for Kody's child, because that child was not Kody's. When the revelation hit, Robyn nearly collapsed. She begged the judge to seal the findings, but it was too late. The whisper had become a roar. Aftermath. The Brown family brand, built on togetherness, love, and faith, took its final breath that day. Even those who had defended Kody online couldn't look away. The internet exploded with shock, confusion, and disbelief. But inside the courthouse, Meri didn't celebrate. She didn't gloat. She simply closed her eyes, exhaled, and whispered, "They can't call me a liar anymore." From that day forward, the courtroom changed. Every word carried more weight. Every silence more judgment. No one saw Kody and Robyn the same way again. The turning point. Kody tried to defend himself, his voice cracking for the first time. "I always believed I was the father. Robyn assured me I was. I loved that child regardless." But the court wasn't measuring love. It was measuring truth. And every financial transfer, every family fund, now looked like deliberate misrepresentation. Then came the moment that ended Kody's fight. The judge ruled the DNA results would be officially admitted into evidence. That ruling turned Meri's claims from emotional testimony into cold, hard fact. Within days, Kody's legal team withdrew their defamation countersuit. Their official statement was brief. "Newly surfaced evidence complicates our position." Translation, we're losing. The courtroom wasn't just Meri's battlefield anymore. It had become her redemption. The fall of Robyn didn't return to court for the next 2 hearings. Her team cited medical distress and severe anxiety. Rumors swirled she'd fired her publicist, deleted her social media, gone dark entirely. For the first time since joining the family, Robyn Brown, once the emotional center of the show, had vanished. Kody came to court alone. No entourage, no smiles. His confident stride had become stiff, his shoulders hunched. The man who had once commanded the Brown household now looked smaller, fragile under the weight of the truth. The question that shattered everything. When he took the stand for preliminary questioning, Dana faced him with calm precision. "Mr. Brown, did you ever use Meri's money to finance expenses related to a child you now know is not biologically yours?" Kody hesitated. A long, heavy pause filled the room. Then quietly, "Yes, but I didn't know." Dana didn't flinch. "But you did know that money belonged to Meri, correct?" "Yes." And just like that, the last layer of illusion fell away. The courtroom was silent. Not the silence of order, but the silence of shock. This wasn't a show anymore. This was a family coming apart in real time. A family divided. The air in the courtroom felt colder now. Not because of the headlines, not because of the unsealed envelope, but because the invisible walls that had held the Brown family together for decades were finally collapsing. And the next fracture was about to split them right down the middle. Christine enters the courtroom. It was early morning when the next witness appeared. Christine Brown walked in quietly. No lawyer, no documents, no entourage. She nodded at the bailiff, kept her eyes forward, and didn't look once at Kody. She didn't have to. Meri's legal team had formally listed her as a witness, calling her to testify on family finances, investment patterns, and emotional coercion within the plural marriage system. Kody's lawyer objected instantly. "She's biased, Your Honor. She has a personal vendetta." But the judge was unmoved. She was part of the family. She had access to the accounts. She may testify. And just like that, Christine Brown, once the quiet, supportive wife, became the most dangerous person in the room. When she took the stand, the courtroom went dead silent. "Mrs. Brown," Dana asked, "can you explain how the family's financial system worked?" Christine looked down for a moment, then met Dana's eyes. "There wasn't a system," she said softly. "There was just Kody." The silence that followed was thunderous. Christine began to detail years of confusion and imbalance, wives told to pay equally, even when their earnings were worlds apart. Meri being asked to lend money until Robyn's check arrived. Properties changing names without a single family meeting. Piece by piece, the puzzle formed a picture no one wanted to see. A web of manipulation, hidden under the guise of faith and family. And in that moment, it was clear. The trial wasn't just about fraud anymore. It was about truth, power, and the collapse of a dynasty built on lies. Christine Brown confessed that she hadn't spoken up back then. "I wanted to be the good wife," she said quietly. "We all did. But it stopped being about God and became all about them, Kody and Robyn. Everyone else was just supposed to obey." Obey. It wasn't a word often heard in a courtroom, but when it dropped, it cracked like lightning. Kody sat motionless at the defense table. Robyn wasn't even there that day. Then came the second shock, Janelle. Cool, calculated, rational Janelle, the family's numbers mind, the one who always avoided the drama. Christine had been the emotional one. Janelle was the accountant, and she was about to detonate the courtroom. Her testimony was surgical. She brought receipts, transfers, loan papers, and text screenshots, every trace of deceit laid bare. "I didn't want to get involved," she told the court. "But when I saw the DNA results, I saw how deep the deception went and how much money wasn't mismanaged. It was stolen." The courtroom gasped when she produced a 2018 email, Robyn asking Janelle and Meri for $30,000 to cover medical expenses for one of Kody's youngest children. Both women had sent the money, but that child wasn't even his. Kody's defense tried to dismiss it all as family business. But Janelle's voice cut clean. "We didn't agree. We were coerced, spiritually manipulated, told we'd be cast out if we refused. And when we rebelled, we were ostracized. This wasn't a marriage falling apart. It was a system collapsing, one built on silence. And that silence was finally shattering." Christine revealed another buried secret. Years earlier, before the show began to crumble, she, Janelle, and Meri had planned to confront Kody about missing money, shady land deals, and favoritism. Robyn wasn't invited. But the night before, she showed up at Meri's door crying. She warned them that if they went through with the meeting, Kody would leave them all. By morning, the meeting was dead. Just as Kody predicted. Now, years later, that moment thundered back in court. "We weren't wives anymore," Christine said. "We were props. And if we questioned anything, we became threats." The jury sat stunned. Even the judge leaned back, eyes narrowed, weighing the enormity of what was unfolding. This wasn't just about fraud. It was about power, faith, and control disguised as devotion. Then Christine's voice broke. "I loved him," she whispered. "I really did. But Kody Brown used God as a contract, and used us as collateral." The courtroom froze. Outside, headlines exploded. Shakira, Christine speaks. Shah's sister wives trial public opinion flipped overnight. Even Kody's longtime defenders began to turn away. And as the camera zoomed in, Kody didn't look angry anymore. He looked defeated. The man who once claimed dominion over 4 wives and 18 children sat watching his empire crumble, one testimony at a time. When court resumed, Meri approached Christine and Janelle quietly in the hall. No cameras, no glam, just 3 women who had once called themselves sisters. They didn't hug. They didn't cry. They simply stood together, breathing, nodding. It wasn't forgiveness. It was recognition. A silent understanding. We see each other now. We believe each other now. That was enough. But the trial wasn't done. The judge called court back to order, and for the first time, Robyn Brown appeared. She entered like a ghost, dressed in plain black, her hair unstyled, her face pale. No tears, no TLC glow, just silence. The judge had compelled her testimony after repeated absences. Now she sat trembling, eyes down, as Meri's attorney, Dana Kilpatrick, stepped forward. "Mrs. Brown," Dana began softly, "do you remember the shared family account in 2017? "Yes," Robyn whispered. "And do you recall withdrawing money from that account for medical expenses?" Robyn nodded. "And those bills were for a child believed to be Kody's?" Her voice cracked. I didn't know what else to do." Dana paused, then asked, "Mrs. Brown, do you keep a diary?" The courtroom held its breath. Kody looked up. Meri leaned forward. Robyn froze. "Yes," she said. Dana signaled to the clerk, who produced a worn spiral notebook. Pages yellowed, corners bent. "This was recovered during pretrial discovery," she explained. The judge nodded. "Proceed." Dana opened to a marked page and began to read. March 4th, 2018. "I told Kody I was running late again. He looked worried. I said I'd make it up to him, but I already knew it wasn't his. I thought about Meri, how she keeps giving and never expects anything in return. Maybe that's why it hurts to take from her. But I took anyway. Gasps rippled through the room. Mrs. Brown, Dana asked gently, do you stand by this diary entry? Robyn buried her face. I never thought it would be made public, she sobbed. I didn't mean to lie forever. I was just afraid. Afraid of losing Kody? Yes, afraid of Meri. No, Robyn whispered. I was ashamed of her. She never broke, I did. Those 6 words shattered the room. Robyn continued through tears. I made Kody think the child was his. I needed him to stay. I thought if he left, I'd be another failed wife. I asked for money, said it was medical. It wasn't. It was for rent, for food, for keeping up the illusion. She turned toward Meri. I lied to you. I took from you. I'm sorry. Meri didn't flinch. You didn't steal money, she said quietly. You stole my truth. Kody shot up, furious. Your Honor, this is out of control. The judge slammed the gavel. Sit down, Mr. Brown. Let her finish. But Kody refused. She's manipulating you. She manipulated me. Robyn turned, her voice raw. I didn't manipulate you, Kody. I did what you taught us to do. Survive in your world. Silence. 2 people once united in faith, now standing on opposite sides of a courtroom, exposed, undone. When the court reconvened, Dana closed the diary. Mrs. Brown, why tell the truth now? Robyn's voice was steady. Because for once, I want to be free. Free from hiding, from the lie. She, gesturing toward Meri, was the only one who ever saw clearly. The courtroom adjourned. Outside cameras swarmed, but Robyn kept her head down, disappearing into a black SUV. Inside, Meri sat still, staring at the diary. That was the turning point, Dana whispered. No, Meri said softly. That was the truth. The rest is cleanup. And then came the verdict. The judge spoke slowly, voice steady yet heavy. Having reviewed all evidence and testimony, this court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Meri Brown, on grounds of financial misrepresentation and emotional distress. Kody's head dropped. Robyn stared at the floor. The judge continued. Funds misused under false pretenses, recoverable by law. He listed damages, $137,000 in restitution, $25,000 for emotional distress, $9,000 for legal fees. But it wasn't the money that made headlines. It was his closing statement. This court reminds the public, no marriage, no faith, no fame is beyond the reach of truth. All are accountable under the law. That line made People magazine's cover. The law applies to all. The courtroom erupted, not in applause, but in release. 2 decades of silence had finally found its voice. Outside, chaos reigned. Reporters yelled. Cameras flashed. Meri walked past them all, calm, resolute. When one shouted, Meri, what's next for you? She smiled faintly. I'm done surviving, she said. Now I'm living. Christine and Janelle stood beside her, not as sister wives, but as survivors. Robyn never reappeared. Kody did, alone, suit rumpled, eyes hollow. I thought I was protecting my family, he muttered. Then he turned and walked away. A man who had once ruled a kingdom of wives and children, now a ghost of his own making. Days later, an off-camera interview captured Meri's quiet reflection. I didn't need a check, she said softly. I needed the silence to stop. I needed someone to tell me you weren't imagining it. It really happened. Now they have. And I'm free. The sister wives trial ended that day, but its echo will last forever. A warning. A reckoning. And above all, a truth. Silence may build empires, but only truth can bring peace. Silence may build empires, but only truth can bring peace.